and I'm going to show you how to make fresh pasta dough. So before you start, you should collect everything that you'll need, and so this is everything that I need. So I have some all-purpose flour, I have some kosher salt, and some eggs. I have a digital scale to measure how much flour I'm using. I have a mixing bowl and a fork, and I like to do it on top of a nice wooden surface. So this is a pasta board, and it's got an edge here so that it won't slide if I'm pushing on the surface this way. And it's also nice to have a scraper so that you can scrape the surface after you're done. And you should also wash your hands thoroughly before you start, because you're going to be using your hands to make the dough, and you also need a fork. Okay, so we're going to make enough dough for 2 people, and so this is the essential recipe here. So for each person that you're serving the pasta to, you need 100 grams of flour, 1 whole egg, and 1 egg yolk only. So since we're going to make it for 2 people, we're going to use 200 grams of flour, 2 whole eggs, and 2 egg yolks. So I like to measure things by weight instead of by volume, and so I'm going to use a digital scale here and measure it in grams. And so for 2 people, you want 2 times 100 grams of flour. So a little over 100. Just for reference, 1 cup of flour is about 160 grams. It doesn't have to be super precise. It's almost there. I'm running out of flour. Okay. There. Now I'm going to add a pinch of salt. This is kosher salt. And mix the salt in with the flour, just using a whisk. It's probably good enough. Okay. So now I do this on a flat wooden board. You could also do that in a really large mixing bowl if you're worried about making a mess, but it's not too hard to figure out how to do it on a flat surface. So keep the bowl, because we're going to put the dough in this to rest after we're done. Okay, so you want to make a hole inside the mound of flour, but you don't want to have a small hole. You want to have a big hole, because you want to have space inside the hole to mix the egg and flour together slowly. And so don't be skimpy, just make a fairly decent sized hole there. That's probably big enough for this. And now we're going to add the eggs inside the hole. So I need 2 whole eggs and 2 yolk only. So there's 1 egg. 2 eggs. So if we get the yolk only, pass the yolk back and forth between the eggshells and let the clear part of the egg drop into a container like a glass here, until all you're left with is the yolk. Just add the yolk. Now the size of the egg may vary, and so again, this isn't an exact recipe. You may have to add a little more flour if the dough is too wet, but we'll just see as we go. Okay, so now this is probably the part that takes a bit of practice, but it's not that difficult. So what you want to do is first break the yolks and mix the egg together, but you want to keep the eggs contained inside the well of the flour. So you want to be a bit gentle. Just stir the yolk together so that you get something roughly uniform. So now what you want to do is you want to add flour to the eggs a little bit at a time. So you want to scrape off some of the flour from the top of your container, but don't do it all at once. Just scrape a little bit in and then try and mix that together with the fork, making I make a small circular motion and then I have the center of the circle go around in the circle. But that's not important. Just the important thing is to just not go too fast and try and mix too much flour in with the egg at once. Okay, so now I can add a little bit more flour. What you don't want to do is make a hole in your wall of flour, because then your eggs will leak out and you'll get messy quick. As you add flour to the eggs, it'll get thicker and thicker, but it's still pretty liquidy at the moment. Okay, so now I'm going to scrape some more flour into the egg mixture. Again, if you're worried about making a mess, or if you try it and you find this way difficult, you can try doing this inside a very large mixing bowl, and that way you won't lose control of the egg part if it escapes your wall of flour. So you can see that it's starting to get thicker now. So that's pretty well incorporated. You can scoop some more flour into it. You can see that the egg, you don't need the flour wall anymore to contain the egg because it's so thick that it won't run away. So on average, you're going to use all of this flour and mix everything together. And so all of this flour here has to eventually get mixed in. So if you don't want to make a big mess with your hands, you want to do as much as you can with the fork before you start using your hands. So I'm still able to get a lot of this done with the fork. Okay, it's getting pretty thick now, and at this point you may want to switch to using your hands, but it's gonna get a little sticky on your hands. But again, you want to have your hands clean before you start, because you're gonna be touching the dough with your hands. So you work that in as much as you can with the fork. And now I'm going to switch to using my hands.
Can you explain the movements that you do?
Okay, so I'm trying to fold the dough and the flour together. I'm not digging it into it with my hands. I'm really just kind of pressing it into the flour so that the flour gets pushed into the to the dough. See, my hands have some of the dough stuck to them, but they're not completely covered. And you can also see that I've pretty much incorporated all of the loose flour into the dough. There's none sitting around extra on the board. So now this is pretty much all stuck together, and you want to knead it kind of like you're kneading bread dough. And the kneading movement is fold it once and then kind of press it together and then just repeat. And you want to change where you're folding it. See, now it's getting a bit more sticky. I'm getting into the yellow stuff. So if it gets sticky, then take some flour, put it on your hands, and have the flour fall onto the dough. So now you've coated your hands with flour, and you've added some more flour to the sticky part of the dough. And so you're not sticking anymore. So this is also getting a bit sticky, so this is where the scraper comes in handy. You can scrape that off. Add a little more loose flour. And so I take the dough, I push it, I fold it over, and then I push it again. So I'm just repeatedly folding and pushing, changing where I'm folding it as I go. And adding a bit of flour if it starts sticking to my hand or to the board. Don't add a lot of flour at once. You want to try and control how much flour you add, and you want, because if you add too much flour, then the dough will be too firm. So you'll only want to add enough to make it take away the stickiness of the surface.
How long do you knead the dough?
I usually knead it only about, I don't know, 20 or 30 folds. I guess I've done about that much by now. So let's check. So if you make a ball of the dough and you press the dough, it should be elastic. It should bounce back like that. Do you agree?
Yes.
So this may be done.
Do it another time.
Okay, I'm just needing a little more. Is that ready? So I push it and it bounces back. So that's pretty much done, I think. So what you want to do now is you want to let it rest at room temperature for at least half an hour. Or if you're making it the day before, you can put it in the fridge and let it rest overnight. But you don't want it to stick to whatever you're letting it rest in. So I'm going to put it in this bowl, so I'm going to sprinkle some flour in the bowl, but I'm also going to sprinkle some flour over the dough just to prevent it from sticking. Put it in there and cover it with plastic wrap so that it doesn't dry out. So there's the plastic wrap. And you're done. So the scraper again is really a great tool to quickly clean up your board. You can just scrape all that dough off, even if it's stuck to the board. So that's it, and